Sign up now at elevate.miami.edu for my course, Organized Rhyme.
Looking at the word legacy, while involving some wordplay, I'll use the first syllable to build upon. We'll use the first syllable, leg. For the second syllable, we'll use an. And for the third syllable, we'll use the word knee. So now we have leg and knee. Can we use it in context with legacy? Let's just see.
Wordsworth Productions with a S.com for all merch.
I'm gearing up to have a banner year. Open up the vault, let me have your ear. About to drop joints to have you swinging from the chandelier. Cavalier, everything he does is like a battle's near. Call him Superfly, going high above the stratosphere. But what in good God's name just happened here? Let me know the code of conduct and I shall adhere. It's rather weird, everybody channels fear. Hoping just for luck you shouldn't listen through a rabbit's ear. I navigate this palisade, looking for the funds above all else. I got the accolades. I'm on borrowed debt, probably till I pass away. Money isn't everything, but nothing is a barricade. Sitting in the matinee, trying not to act afraid, but my biopic opens up with a hand grenade. It's like Normandy Beach, I'm trying to catch a wave, violent and equally beautiful. Anime.
What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of What Words Are Worth. And today I got a guest that shows that he can stand the test of time with hip hop. I mean, a lot come and go. We got a lot of our favorites that you just wish they were still putting out great music. He's consistently been able to put out great music. Also, within that time frame, been also able to show his versatility. So, in the 90s and just coming up throughout the era of doing music and hip hop, 2000s, just doing hip hop in general, sometimes people might try to put you in a box. I first recognized how dope he was from battling, and from then on, he's been able to say, I'm not just a battle rapper. I could do songs. I could write this. I could produce this. I could direct it. He could do everything. So today, coming to the stage, dope lyricist, dope artist, one of a kind, putting it together, whatever. Welcome to the stage, Wrekonize.
Hey, yo, coming from you, I'm getting geeked out over here right now. Hold up, this is the excitement level for a Sunday is going way above the usual. I thank you for that.
Nah, man, it's true, man. You know how it is, like being able to battle rap, and then being sometimes you could be put into a box there, and then how that stigma was there. But me being able to follow your career and seeing what you've done and what you do, I'm able to see that you weren't held in any box. And I think a lot of people can attest to that by being fans of your music. I was listening to your music yesterday and I was like, man, one thing people may not notice too, that you're very soulful. Like I was like, he's mad soulful making the music too.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So I wanted to let you know and all that, man. So this show is about how you come up with the bars, man. Which I felt was more than necessary, recognizing what you do and what you say and how you put it together. I watch the videos, I listen to the music. So we're going to get into that, but also I want, people to know where people may know you from and what you've been up to. So what's one of the first places people may have recognized you from, such as myself as well?
Man, yeah. I've been in the scene for like 20 almost years now, I want to say. I'm 41 and I really started like pushing into like music and hip hop's like in my like late teens, like early 20s. I started getting into the battle scene around that age, like 17, 18, like started coming down to Miami because at the time I was living in Hollywood, which is like 30 minutes north. I know you're rocking the hat too, by the way. So holla 305, we out here. But yeah, so I started like at that time there was really nobody in that area just north of Miami doing any music. It was like only maybe a handful of people tops in my whole high school that rapped, So I started hearing about the battles and stuff in Miami and the b-boy jams, and that was the way that kind of got me down to like, okay, let me go see what this is about. And my whole like reasoning for getting into battle rap in the beginning was when I got there, I just wanted to make music. I didn't really know anything about battling. I just got there and was like, oh, this is where the musicians go. This is where the like rappers, producers, and everybody goes, the DJs. So when I got there, everybody knew each other. They all went to school together. I didn't know anybody. I just rolled with my sister or whatever homie I had with me from Hollywood. And When I got there, I was trying to kind of make connects and like, yo, maybe I could get a beat and just trying to, get my way, network or whatnot. And they weren't really trying to hear anything if you weren't in those circles. I found it really hard to break through. So I'm like, all right, this is going to be a challenge. Then the battle came on. When the battle came on, I saw that like everybody's attention focused on to what was going on upstage on stage and watching the battle rappers go. And I was like, yo, okay, hold up a second. So this kind of seems to be like the attention, like the way that I could get people's attention and like break through. I'll just go try that, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So I got up there with the intention of really just trying to network and make a name for myself. And then when I started doing it, I was like, wait, I actually kind of love this. This is fun. Like I'm very non-confrontational, very passive, very peaceful human being, but letting that outlet out, that aggression out through rhyme and keeping it all peace at the end of the day was a great experience for me because it was a great outlet. So I got into battle rap. Started doing my thing, cutting my teeth in Miami, and which led to better and bigger competitions. It kind of pinnacled out for me at the MTV battle in 2003. I got on there, and that kind of was like my springboard into like the national scene. And then I got my first record deal shortly after that. And that kind of like just I followed that train of thought basically for years and years until I got joined a group called Mayday. And they invited me in. I'm trying to do like the Cliff Notes version, so I don't, run too long.
I got all these questions here about
okay.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
If you mention it, then that's cool because then I can just go to something else. You know what I mean?
All right. Cool. So yeah, I mean, it just kind of give you like the Cliff Notes version before we dive deep. So that got me into the group, and when we got into the group, we ended up getting one of our first like big for real record deals and putting out a bunch of music since then. So it's been kind of like it all started with battling was my main point. There is that like. Yeah, like I just want to, and I'm happy to have not gotten pigeonholed or trapped in the scene because it wasn't my intention to be that in the beginning. Anyways, it was all about music. It was all, I just wanted to make music. So to be able to get like to a successful place in battling, but then also not get like totally when I did get to that point where I almost was doing like the best battles I'd ever done, I did realize that battle rap fans are a lot like sports fans. They're savage, like they disrespect like who they don't like. They champion who they do like. And if you're not like on the winning end or, like you get discarded real quick. It's really just like the Coliseum, So I was watching that and getting real trepidatious about how much further I was going to go in it because I was like, if I don't hop off this train now, like I might never get off, And I toured years later with Dirtbag Dan and I watched him on that tour. He was putting out music and he was a super established battle rapper at that time. And I was watching like the fans coming to the show that didn't really know his music and only knew him from the battles and watching him like struggle with trying to straddle both those worlds. And I gave him mad props on that tour because I was like, this is a challenge. Like I see what happens. Like once you get too big in one arena, it makes it hard to hop. People just know you for what they know you for. So it's something that I'm glad to have like slipped around and bobbed and weaved around rather, get stuck there.
I wanted to ask you, so how did you kind of like have the courage to do the Mayday stuff? Because it's kind of like, I don't want people, you know how it is. If I do this, now I'm not keeping it real, or where did that come from to say I'm going to do this? Or
man, what it was my pops is a songwriter, guitar, folk songwriter, right? And my mom was a backup singer in his band, so music was always around. Like my grandfather's like a famous comedian in the 50s in England, so like theater and just putting on the shows all in the blood. And
I read that they were opening up with Guru for Jasmine Taz.
So funny story about that. So here's what happened. When I did the MTV battle, I did an interview with I forget what publication it was at the time, and the guy said like, oh, how did you get into music? So I was given the backstory of my parents, and I said, yeah, my mom was backup singer in his band, and I said my pops introduced me to Guru actually. And then what I meant was like he introduced me to Guru's music.
Right.
because what's crazy is like so imagine 93, 94, I'm like 10, 11 years old. I'm getting into hip hop, but like I got into it through the commercial level first. So like I was Snoop's, Snoop's first album, Biggie's first album, like that was the stuff that I got introduced to. So imagine I missed like a huge chunk of like golden era shit before that. But what's funny was my pops being into music. I remember specifically him being like, yo, you would dig this. And he showed me, I think it was Once Again, like it was a Tribe video. And he showed me and he was like, yo, you would dig this. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. When your parents show you some shit, you don't really receptive to it in the beginning. And I
Sure.
was into super gangster rap in the beginning. So I was like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, all right, whatever. And I kind of brushed it off. And then my pops actually just started playing jazzmatazz at the house when I went to visit him one summer. And I was like, yo, this is dope. And I had no idea about Gangstar at this point. So then that was my introduction to that world. And it was through my pops basically introducing me to Guru through jazzmatazz. And when I said it to the journalist at the time, he took it as like my pops introduced me. And somehow, I don't know where it got snowballed on some like, Game of Whispers shit. But then like online, it would say somewhere on Wikipedia or somewhere, it said like, my pops like rocked with them or was in a band with them or like opened for them or something. So it got out of control. I don't know how it got that far, but that's basically where that came from.
Okay, because I was reading that and I was like, okay, I started understanding now who Wrekonize is, though.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's kind of where I could kind of go like, okay, so he has this background to here. And then now hearing you talk about the commercial albums you're listening to, then it's often not understood that, okay, because you make this music, people may say you don't know nothing about that music over there.
Yeah.
So sometimes people will just write you off for what you're making and be like, you don't know nothing about this, you don't know about that. But it seems like you were brought and taught up with a whole bunch of different genres. So you weren't just kind of like one genre, which probably explains why I said you're very soulful because,
Yeah, it definitely like there's definitely like some what do you call it? Diversity in the music because my parents were listening to all kinds of stuff, classic rock. My pops loves funk music, soul music. So I was hearing a lot of different music. And then what's funny is hip hop kind of ruined me for a split second because in the beginning, imagine around that time, mid 90s, like it wasn't cool to sing. So when I was younger, before I started getting to rap, like I was singing because I was just trying to be like my pops and I was singing. And then I got into rap at that time and rap was like, do not sing. You are a herb if you sing. Like, so I was like, oh, I guess I'm not going. So then I stopped practicing singing. I didn't even ever try to sing on a track. And I just started writing bars and verses and trying to rap. So then I kind of totally abandoned it. And to circle back to what you mentioned before about Mayday was, I got my first deal after the MTV contest in Miami. It was an independent label called South Beat. It was guys who owned an adult entertainment company, had some money, you know the story, the classic story. Super cool guys, had money, loved music, wanted to get involved somehow. So they started a label and basically signed a bunch of artists all from different genres. They had a Latin pop artist named Raito. They had a R&B artist from Slip Inside called Jay Shin. They signed me. I was the first signed. And then they signed Mayday. But at the time, Mayday was just a two-man group. So what was cool was it was the whole jump to Mayday wasn't that abrupt. It was real organic because they were signed. I was signed. We were label mates. We were the most like relative as of all the artists. You had your R&B, you had your Latin pop, but then we were doing like kind of similar stuff, hip hop stuff. And I was watching them. I had already been a fan of both the guys in Mayday at the time. Plex was in a group called Algorithm, underground Miami group, super political. Burns was in a group called Evolver, two-man group, funky, producing their own joints. And these guys are maybe 4 or 5 years at least older than me. So I was like the young cat looking at them. They're pressing their own vinyls, on the underground scene. I'm like, I want to be doing some of that, So I was already a fan of theirs before I even met them. Then I met them. We kind of became friends over time. And then when we got signed to the same deal and we were working in the same studio, I was hearing what they were doing and we were kind of just kicking it. So it became like a point where like I watched them put out the whole first Mayday album. I did some scratches on it. I never they didn't have any other rap vocals on the album. They just had Devin the Dude did a hook and they had CeeLo do a hook, but then no other rap vocals other than Burns. So I just got to get in there any way I could. I'm like, what do you need? You need some scratches? I got you, So I did some cuts on the record. I hung out with them a lot to the point where basically when that record label went under, they had already been kicking it with me so much that they're like, yo, we want to expand the group. we want to bring in some other instrumentalists, and we want to bring in another MC. And it was like a no-brainer almost at that point. It was just like, yeah, well, fuck it, I'm already kicking it with y'all so much, like, let's go, you know. So it wasn't really like a super abrupt jump as far as like joining the group, but what was definitely jarring in the beginning for me was I had shunned being melodic and doing any kind of singing for so long that I only did it when I like felt like I was going to color outside the lines just a little bit. And Burns and Plex really championed that and said, like, yo, man, you got some chops, man. You should sing more. Like, you could sing live. You could. And I was like, I don't know. Like, it's not really, you know. And then they pushed me to go into that department more in that avenue, explore it, which is without them, I don't know how long it would have taken me to like see the light, so to speak. So that was the part that was really like in the beginning, was like those early Mayday days. I was trying a lot of stuff that I had not done or was scared to do or just swore I would never do, you know?
Yeah, and like you talking about doing scratches. So you're involved in all the elements of hip hop. So the origin of your name came from one of those elements. Right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell us how that came about.
My one of my middle school best friends, he just it was just the anniversary. He passed like 7 years ago, sadly. So rest in peace to Sake the Great. But homie of mine named Eddie Noga, we kicked it all the time. He lived right around the corner from me. So imagine we're like middle school age, you know, 12, 13, our early teen years. And I'm introducing him to music, like hip hop stuff. Cause I had my parents were super liberal. I was living with my mom. My pops moved to New York. So I'm living with my mom. My mom's British, super liberal, let me listen to mostly whatever I want. She bought me Doggy Style for 5th grade, Valentine's Day. Imagine I'm 11. I got kids now, and I'm like, I don't know if I would give my kids Doggy Style.
My mom bought me Cool G Rap, and you know, I was blasting Talk Like Sex and all these crazy songs, and she was just like, it's just whatever, you know, it's just music.
I love that. I think that's the way to be. That's the way to be. Like, I feel like the other way breeds like it just breeds the wrong kind of atmosphere. But letting that access of information and just also like being cool with your kid and being like, yo, this is what it is. These are some things, you know, this is not accepted in certain school, you know, don't go into school saying this basically, but do your thing. So I'm listening to
my mom said this one time. She said, listen, if that music can control you more than I can, I didn't do my job.
Damn. Bars. I love that. Yeah, I think that's true. Like, it's I don't know if it's an Eminem lyric or what, but there's somebody who was like, you know, don't blame me, blame the parents. You know what I mean? Like, it's the parents, dude. So it's like, that was how my mom operated as well, which thankfully is how it went down. So when I started kicking on my boy Eddie, his parents were a little more conservative. So I had a lot of hip hop, and I was like, yo, check this out. And he was like, what the fuck is this? You know? And at the same time, his family's super artistic. His pops and him used to build model cars and stuff. And he was super into graffiti. Even before he had like really gotten exposed to hip hop music, he was into art in general. Right. And then as we started to explore like hip hop together as young kids growing up, he got into graffiti a lot. And I saw him doing graffiti and I was like, man, that looks great. That looks super cool. I would love to do that too. So I tried to, you know, get into graffiti. I learned over that course of time that I'm not really that good in that department. You know what I mean? I'm not very.
Everybody's figuring out which element.
I'm not really graphically inclined for real. Like, I could only like trace some things and be okay. But like creating something out of my own, like just drawing something from scratch, I could not wrap my mind around that. And he was really good at it. So he used to get books and magazines and whatever he could get to get inspiration. And I'm kicking at his house. And this is around the time where I was starting to really like dabble in the idea of music and thinking about rapping myself or making music myself. Right. And he had Martha Cooper's Subway art book. And we used to flip through that book and just try to, you know, find trains to emulate or designs to copy to practice and stuff. And on the cover of that Subway art book, there was a train from the 80s in New York that someone had bombed up, Wrekonize, spelled the way I spell it. So I got it from the cover of that book. I saw it. It's just jumped out at me for some reason. I was like, yo, I love the way it looks. And then at the time, because my parents were split up, the time that I spent with my dad was very like, my dad's super intense. so he would be, you know, we'd only get a little bit of time together, and that time was hyper focused. So he'd be like trying to school me to whatever he could in that small amount of time. And one of the things he used to hammer on me all the time was to be observant of your surroundings, kind of peep what's going on, you know, be mindful of people, be mindful of your places where you're at. Like, so when I saw the word recognize, I always felt like, okay, like that kind of clicks in with what my pops is trying to school me to, you know? So I just said, yo, I'm going to lift it and just use that as my name. I guess at the time now in retrospect, like I didn't really think about the fact that somebody was using that name on a train. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was too young to really like to think of it as like a bite or anything like that. I just thought, oh, I just think this is cool. So I'm going to write it too, whatever, as a kid. But then when I realized I wasn't really good at graffiti or drawing, I pivoted the name and just kept it for music. And I was like, I'm just going to use this as my alias to be a musician.
I was listening when you said the scratches. I didn't even know you maybe even had that going on too. The scratches.
It definitely was I got to that part before I got to like, maybe I could rap because basically like I was trying to figure out I had a friend on the block who DJ'd. He had a little setup at his house. And when I saw that, I was like, damn, this is super fun. And then the gateway it was really my gateway drug into like, I could be a rapper maybe, because the vinyls, the singles had the instrumentals on the back. Right. So then I was like, okay, when we were DJing and just kind of messing around, I was like, yo, I would like to do this. I want to get a pair of decks at my house. So I dreamt for the longest time, let me get a pair of, you know, belt drive, cheapy turntables or whatever. Finally got a set of my own. And when I started collecting vinyls and there was instrumentals on the back, that's how we started kind of like experimenting, like with, you know, first it was just me in my bedroom fucking around. But then like I got homies from the neighborhood and we were like, yo, let's cypher, let's, you know, freestyle. And we start freestyling from that. So like I was trying to really be a DJ first. And then it like just kind of opened up the door to being like, oh, wait, actually, no, I think I could do this instead.
Yeah. And you being in the MTV battle too, you mentioning it earlier, I made me think, I was like, man, you were one of the first people that I remember me going like, one of the first a few that made me go like, Miami, they be rhyming like that down there like that. you know what I'm saying? Because remember, we didn't have no internet. So like, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like big like that, put it like that, if I say that. But like, it wasn't such like now you can see somebody just post up that they're rhyming in Brazil, they're rhyming here, they rap, you know, in Arkansas, there's a group like this. Like, you know, kind of growing up in New York and being New Yorker, sometimes your world is your world. And I'm sure when you're in Miami, your world is your world is your world. So sometimes you think the world is just your four corners. So it was dope to see you on there doing that and be like, okay, there's other people in other places, which is where we are now. Now you know everywhere there's somebody that does this. It'd be dope.
The world is so much smaller now, but back then it felt like New York, even though I went to New York a lot, and Miami does have that New York connection because a lot of New Yorkers would move down to Miami. So we would get a lot of our mixtapes and stuff like as like a downstream from New York. Right. So like there was multiple wins for me like in that battle era because going from Miami to New York was a big deal for sure. Miami itself was still trying to fight to put ourselves on the map as far as hip hop was concerned. You know, we had DJ Craze who was going out there and winning DMC battles and doing his thing in the DJ world. We had some pretty like decent prominent graph writers at the time. B-boys, we had a lot of B-boys as well. But like as far as like the music part of it was going and the rapper part of it was going, it wasn't as pronounced. So it was like we were still fighting to get our shit up, you know? And before I even got to New York though, I did have a little bit of that same feeling in Miami. Because when they did the first call in Miami, it was like a radio station here that's popular. And basically they were like, yo, come on down. We're doing like a search for a MTV competition. And I don't even think they said the word MC battle. So imagine when you get there, there's like 300, 400, 500, whatever it was people. And it was everybody. There was reggae singers and R&B singers and rappers and jugglers. And it was it was crazy. So it was like a lot of people there that didn't know what was going on. And so there was a weird, I'll never forget that when they called my name and we were all standing outside, because basically they had an audition at a studio and you had to go in there and just kick a 16. And I'm standing out there. My government name is Benjamin. My full name is Benjamin John Miller, right? So it gets real. Again, don't get much more pilgrim than that. So they said Benjamin Miller and they called it out. And I can remember the people, like there was an audible like chuckle. Like people were like, oh, who the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, who's that at this like rap hip hop competition or whatever. So like already in my own city, I had, because none of the people that knew me from the actual battle scene were really there. It was like a talent search.
Okay,
So
I got you, man. Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were like I was amongst peers. It was like we were going to like a commercial talent search kind of vibe, and I didn't know many or none of the people. There might have been one or two rappers from the scene that I seen there, but most of the people were strangers. So it was already, I felt like I went into the booth going like, oh man, they are already clowning me. You know what I mean? But I used to thrive off that. That was my vibe anyway. In the battle scene when I first started going to Miami, it was like I'd walk in. And I was very unassuming. I'm not aggressive. I don't like try to draw attention to myself when I go in the room. I just would stand there and be polite and quiet and wait my turn. And then when I got up there, it was your ass. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like, you know, sometimes just being quiet and then knowing that you got that, you know what you got. So you're like,
yeah,
all right,
yeah. No, I'm chill. I'm gonna be confident about it. And also, when I was younger, I was a little more aggressive in that department. Anyways, I'm way more chill now. As you know, like when you get older, you let some of that shit go. But yeah, it was already a bit of a so getting to New York was a big deal already. Then once I got to New York, it was, you know, me and 7 other MCs from around the whole country. And it was a surreal experience. And then I don't think I really fully grasped what it meant until the next day. I was walking around in New York City, and my pops lived in New York for like 5 years when between the ages of 13 and between the ages of 7 and 12 or 13. My pops was living in Manhattan. So I would go to New York. I knew the city, you know, as a kid anyway. And so I loved New York. And when I walked around the next day after the battle, people stopped me in the street. Cause imagine it was Saturday primetime MTV, you know?
Yeah.
So everybody was wild. Like, it's just I think it's hard for me to explain to younger kids now, like what a big deal it was at the time. But when people were stopping me in the street the next day, like, that's when I was like, yo, this is shit. This shit's crazy. You know, this is a whole different level, you know, of exposure.
Yeah. And also around that time in those years are coming up, like remember the ciphers and stuff like that. I try to explain this sometimes to the kids and stuff. Is like, you know, people would approach you and just be like, yo, you rap? Like just because you dress hip hop, they just assume you rap. So you almost had to be barred up all day. Like your whole life was just, I can't even go outside without having like 2 or 3 16s. Because people assume as soon as you just how you dress, you rap, and you might, if you don't rap, then it's like, nah, oh, okay, I thought you rap because you know you look like you rap, and this is based on the hip hop star. So you know, understanding that now, y'all don't really understand how it was like aggressive, like yo, you rhyme, yo, let's rhyme right now, you rhyme. They don't care what you got going on in your life. They don't care who you with. You wouldn't care. You'd be like, hold on, let me just rhyme right now. Because it was about getting that's the way you went viral. Like you rap in New York or Miami and do something there, and then people will call their family in another place that knew you there and say, you know, this kid there, and then now all of a sudden the recognition it gets crazy. So I understand totally what you were going through. So let's get I was
gonna say it's kind of amazing that like that mythology of like I could like rap my way into something like still exists. All these things that we've lost over the years with the internet and streaming and everything, but like that mythology, like I meet younger kids now and they still feel like they could kick me a verse right now that could change their life. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of crazy in a way. Like it's dope, but like that part never faded. Like people still aggressively want to come up and rap to you. I don't think that'll ever die.
Yeah, and then the understanding too, it's so many things trying to explain the differences, but that could go generationally. We got older people that explain differences to us and vice versa, and we keep going and going. And just understanding that now you could rap and hit the button and it's there for the world. Before, like what you were doing and going for, you were trying to get established, and there was like gatekeepers. I don't get past this, then I don't get this deal. Then this deal stops me from going out here, and then I can't get this record out. Now that whole mindset of I can't put my music out is kind of just like dissipated. You know, it's like, oh, I made a song, we're uploading it right now. So that's that whole mindset I think has changed, which is dope. I think it's dope because me and you we could rap right now and they'd be like, yo, this is fire, put it out tonight. And then there's nobody, we're not waiting in the office. Somebody's not setting up meetings that they're not coming to. They're not, you know, all the stuff we had to go through. But yeah, let's get into the creativity part of it, man. So where you are now with it today? Are you doing paper, pen, on the computer.
Oh,
And
man.
how you put these bars down, these amazing bars, man.
Yeah, this is always a funny question. I'm left-handed, and I am a terrible writer, like physical, like my legibility or whatnot is
Yeah.
horrible. So my grandmother always used to get on me about it, like she tried to correct my writing, and I was like, I'm not good. This is not meant for me. I'm not supposed to be good with this, like the actual art of penmanship, you know. So when as early as like the T-Mobile sidekicks came out, and you could have you could write in the notes section, I was like, fuck the pad, fuck the pen, I'm on the digital. You know what I mean? I love being able to just type the shit up. And then I also was like, when you had to like send your lyrics to the label or whatever it was, having them there to just copy and paste and not have to transcribe them after then writing them on a pad, was just very romantic idea for me. So I always loved that, and I abandoned writing it. And I got a lot of friends who still write on pad and paper to this day, won't ever give it up, love the feeling of the pad and the pen. And I admire it. I respect it. You know, I love it. I don't shun it at all. I'm like, hey, if you vibe with that, hey, I'm with you. But for me, it went to like the sidekicks, and then it went to the phone. And then when they do that now, the connection with the iCloud, and you can type on your laptop and it just pops up on your phone. I'll often like type it on the laptop, and then when it's time to go in the booth, I'll just take the phone with me as well. So like what's kind of whack is that like if you film yourself recording a verse, you don't know, like holding the phone looks so weak to me. Like I hate the way it looks, you know, it's the worst. But I'll trade the convenience of not having to deal with my shitty penmanship and going left hand over, smudging my lettering and shit. I'll trade all of that just to have to hold the phone every now and again, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying. I'm on the computer with it now too. I'm the same way, like you're saying. I write on the phone. I know the cloud got it on the computer later. I've spoke to some of our peers, and they still write on paper. And here's some of the interesting things I've heard through this discussion is you got the writing it on the paper leaves the indentations of the emotion. So if you're mad, you know, you could tell I wrote that mad because how the indentations.
Only that would have worked for me because all my writing looks like I'm mad. You know what I'm saying? Like my writing never looks good. You know what I mean? So like they always be like, "Damn, this is a happy ass song, but you look hella mad when you wrote." I'm like, no. It's just bad writing.
So we got that perspective, and then I got another perspective from Pooh, and he was saying somebody I think took some of the lyrics he wrote on paper and then presented it in a frame.
Oh, that's dope.
So now it's becoming art. And then my perspective has been more like trying to identify with where we are and where we're going, and just like now having books with our literary work. So like me, I would love to just read the recognized lyrics now and just kind of just forget the beat, because I know how potent you are as a lyricist with the beat or without the beat. And I'm noticing that's becoming its thing too. So that way it's kind of being set into this library now. Now they're having this library of, you know, or even they're doing courses studying our lyricism. So I kind of view it like it's now being looked at like a recognized. I could come to Miami and be down there, and you could actually have like an art gallery based off of your bars all around.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they had a page from Bob Marley, like a lyric page of him that he wrote. You know what I mean? And I was standing in front of it like it was like a holy scripture. You know, and I was like, this is amazing. You know, and the feeling of seeing it, knowing it, he wrote it on the page. It made me feel a little bit like I was envious that of him, and I'm thinking like I felt a little bit less than for not writing shit on paper for that reason.
I don't think I'll go back like how we are, but like I think just having it in that digital form, like you said, and maybe just at least print it somewhere. And
the same way like you could see a art gallery like made up a certain kind of like handwritten prints, but then you could also see an art gallery that's like reprinted, or it's text that's like printed by a machine, and it can still have the same effect on you, because at the end of the day, it's really what about the word is saying. And even if you took printed out a lyric sheet and then signed it, you still have your hand on it some way, shape, or form. I feel like that's still a good way to get there. You know what I mean?
That's dope. See, I didn't even think about
like
that.
Kind of hybriding it, a little bit. Even if you like, you know how they had the book of poems that Pac had, and like it was handwritten, but then he also had like just drawings and doodles in the margins and shit. And like that could almost be like you could do a printed page and then just put like a hand touch on it, and then boom, that's a work of art. I know Mac Lethal from Kansas City, I think it was him. He was doing something where like he would do a project, and then when his project came out, he would put out individual lyric sheets, and it was like he kind of designed them for the fans. So it was like you could tell it was like put together with the lyrics, but then it also had little extras and stuff. And it was like he tailor-made it to be going out to somebody as a collectible.
Yeah, man. See, now you got me thinking. That's fire, man.
Yeah,
Just, like, you know, think about that aspect of like printing it out and then like putting my own little, you know, hand thing on there. So now you got me vibing and thinking going forward with some other
also shit, while we're tossing ideas out.
Yeah, let's go.
Back in the day, in the early 2000s, Aesop Rock did an EP called like Danger Knives. I forget the name of it off the top of my head now, but that EP came in like a slimline case. And then they what they did was it was a Def Jux release, and they packaged it up in like you know, when the CD used to come on that like the hard cardboard outside that you could slide off. So you slide that off and you get this very slimline CD, and then the rest of the whole package was filled up by a book about the same size as the CD, and that book had all his lyrics, not just that project. It had all his lyrics for the discography up to that point, and that fucking book. Like I have it in my CD collection in storage. Like it's literally like a piece of treasure to me. Like it's just, and again, not handwritten, no scribbles. It was all printed in a cool like calligraphy style text. It was all printed by page. But looking at it and reading through the lyrics, especially with an artist like Aesop, is just like you can't beat it. You can't.
And that's why I enjoy about like listening to your music, man. Because I'm listening to the caliber of rhyming. So like, you know, because I rap, so there's a lot of technicalities I'm listening to though, man, that I really enjoy hearing you rap. Even when I go to your Instagram, I watched the Still Not Summer live performance.
Oh yeah.
I love it, man, because you maintain the integrity of the pen, and it shows that you have all the necessary tools and the tool shed to bring out. And that's what I think over time, some people may waver with like the quality control, you know, so your quality control is just like upper echelon with it, you know. So I want to definitely let you know that from me just listening over the years, because remember, it's years now since MTV, right?
Yeah. Shit, 20 years now or something like that.
We've been doing this for a long time. And it get to a point of just like, I'm just going to do whatever, just get this song out. Nah, you still are very like, surgical with the wording and the placement and the lines and what you're doing. So I definitely want to
I'll say two things about that. One is I got to get this out the way because I was gonna save it to the end, but I get it out of the way. You say you rap like it's just I rap too. Like yo, super big fan of yours for years and years and years. You had a super big impression on me. I think as far as like when it comes to the rhyme structure that's built within a verse that a lot of people talk about, they often give props to like an Eminem or someone like that, when the multiple rhymes that exist inside of one line. To me, you're one of the most underrated MCs to ever do it. So let's just put that out there on the fucking record. All right. The craftsmanship in the bars is fire. I was a super big fan of Mirror Music. I was super big fan of you and Punch. And I was a super big fan when the Lyricist Lounge show came out. My whole fucking world exploded. You know what I'm saying? Like that shit, like that had a cultural impact on me personally, that like at the time that Chappelle Show came out, Chappelle Show also like was so impactful because it was so popular and so like hitting on all the like the commentary. But for us, like, or for me particular, Lyricist Lounge was that, but but the whole thing in rhyme, it was ridiculous. Like still trying to figure out how to wrap my mind around doing that today blows my mind. So
yeah, thank you, man. And there's people that talk about reboots and all of that and stuff like that. And what brings it full circle to an artist like you watching the show, if people really knew, like kind of like watching the show, if you look at the cast, a lot of those was underground artists that we purposely we really was on some. If I would have known you right there, I'd have been like, you Wrekonize, what's up? Come out. We were literally like that doing the show. Like calling friends back home, they need somebody to rhyme on. So then you get Thurston on it, you get Invincible on it. I mean, you getting all these people that were our underground friends because we were looking at it like that. We didn't look at it like you know, and that's what we loved about doing the show more so. So definitely, if I would have known you right then, you would have got the call.
Yeah, that would have been so fire.
You know,
That would have been so fun. Because you know, before when I was younger, before I got into like music, like as my push, like my main focus, I was chasing theater. And so, because my grandfather was into theater, he's been in a few movies. He was on the Benny Hill show a few times. He was a stand-up comedian. He was a character, super character, and just into like making people laugh and also just theatrics. So before I really like found music as like my focus, I was thinking, yo, like I'm gonna try to become an actor like him. So I went to a magnet school, middle school for performance arts. And what's cool is we got to do some music there too, but the main focus was theater. So like Lyricist Lounge Show also had that aspect of it where it was like combining the two things that I'd loved so much in my like segmented childhood of those two zones. And like, it was like a stage show. It felt like alive. It felt like, you know, like everyone blew up when Hamilton came out. And I was like, like we've already been seeing shit like this with the Lyricist Lounge Show. You know what I'm saying? Like we had this already. And it was a little more edgy and a little bit more of what we liked than the Broadway version, you know, but, and that's not to take away from what they did, but we had that already. And for me, it was just like, it was the music and it was the theater and it was funny and it was social commentary. So it was a very special time in my life as like you know, as an ingester of that art, like, man, so fire. So props.
Speaking of the musicals, you know, Master Ace has a musical.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, man.
It's like going on right now, or this happened already?
This happened. He had a couple of shows a few months ago, and then now he's still you know, like fine tuning some things to get it going again. The lead actor was Nems.
Oh no, classic.
You can look it up. It's called The Fallen Season, and they got like rave reviews on rockthebell.com. And like, yeah, it's real dope, man. So eventually it'll be more out there. But he's definitely been doing that, and a couple other people working on it too. So
I hope I get a chance to catch that for sure.
Oh yeah. I'll send you some links to it too if you want to just kind of see what it's about.
Please.
So chorus or verse first?
Oh man. Chorus or verse first. I used to start with verse first. And then I think like up until the, you know, when I started, you know, it was in the early battle days, it was like, it was all freestyle stuff.
Right.
Then I was in freshman year of high school and I was reading the source, and in the source they talked about how Prodigy from Mobb Deep had a composition notebook and he wrote all his rhymes in there. And I was like, okay, that I should do that. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna get a composition book and I'll start the black and white one, the same one, and start writing rhymes in there. So like it really just started as writing verses. So it was very verse heavy in the early days. And then I met a homie, Serum, who was big on the battle scene in Miami as well. And he used to have an interesting way where he would write his verse and then he would take the first part of his verse or one of the strongest parts of the verse and just like basically transport that to the chorus. So I started playing around with that. That was kind of interesting, a little interesting time for a while too. So it was a little bit of hybrid. And then when I joined Mayday, the kind of music that we were making in Mayday in the beginning and till now, it was very hook centric, very focused on the hook, almost with a pop sensibility. So we were going heavy on the hook. Also, the hook can be, even though it takes longer maybe to craft like a perfect hook, it can be a little less labor intensive feeling than a 16, 24, 32 bar verse. So the hook can often feel a little bit more, not chill, but like a little bit more appealing to go to first, you know, if you want to get like the structure. So I would say nowadays I end up trying to go to hook first, just so I can get an idea of what the record's going to be about and what the vibe is going to be like. But there are still days when I'll crash before I can get the hook out and I'll go, I'm just going to go back and write a verse. I remember reading like in some of the sources or double XLs about how people would approach the record, and some people would go verse and then some people would go hook. And I would just kind of be like, maybe I'll try it that way for a while. You know what I mean? So it's been back and forth for sure. But I'll say like today, I definitely try to start hook first and then go verse after.
Yeah, I've found from hearing and listening to people, everybody has different ways. Yeah. And then I also think like time plays a part into it too. Depending on how much studio time you may have,
yeah,
you know, all of that plays a part, because you know you kind of know you can write the rhyme anyway. You know the rhyme is going to come this, so you like, we need this hook, and then sometimes you're kind of like, Well, you know what? I'm just gonna say write the verse, and I'll work on the hook tomorrow. And a lot of times that plays a part into it. So, how long does it take you to write the verse, the song, or if you're making beats and stuff?
So and this connects back to 2 questions ago too, because I've been around, I've recorded with a few MCs over the years, and I've heard obviously all the mythology about people who write in their head. Of course, you hear about your Jays. We recorded Freeway for a Mayday remix, and he rocked in his head. We did a feature with Graph. We had Graph on a Mayday record early in the days, and he did a fucking long ass verse in his head, and I was like, yo, I was amazed. And then we did a whole project with Murs, and Murs, I never saw Murs write anything down. He always wrote in his head. And mind you, that was a group project where we did kind of almost like a Beastie Boys style, where we were like cycling, or an Onyx style. We were like cycling through the verses, like 2-bar, 4-bar, 6-bar max maybe. So it was a little easier to wrap my mind around how he was doing that rather than a 32. But I could never get into writing in the head for this reason that you're asking right now, because the pressure of having to remember it, but then also retain it for delivering it. And then if you're under a studio schedule and let's say your studio doesn't have a time limit, but in the early days, like just working with an engineer, you feel pressure if you give a fuck about the other human that's in the room. Like I'm British, man, at heart. So like I'm thinking about his time. I'm like, I feel the pressure of that other person waiting there for me to deliver my shit. Which is why in the early days, I ended up like, I have a really good friend that we made in the South Beat era. His name's Ryan Evans, super renowned engineer. He engineers for Salam Remy now these days, but he used to work with us at the label, and we became real good friends. So our friendship was cool enough where we could be real chill, and I didn't have to feel that pressure. But when I wasn't working with him, I was like, yo, I'm just gonna teach myself how to record, because I don't want to have to feel that pressure of someone else, or worrying about someone else's schedule or whatever. I'm just going to learn how to do it myself. So in every Mayday studio we had since then, we always made it so you could have an engineer running it, or there's a booth, and in the booth there's a screen and a keyboard and a mouse, and you could run the show yourself if you so please. And I always felt like that was helpful, because no matter what the situation brought, or no matter how much time you had, you could just you could get it done. You could get it done. So the time was always like, it was concerning,
So how about a 16? You could write it right there on spot, or you take a couple of weeks. Depending on the song or what you're rapping about, you might say, you know what, I'm gonna fall back on this. I got 2 lines, but I still haven't come up with what I want. So it might take a month. Sometimes the first song you start might be the last song you finish.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely, as I've gotten older, have appreciated the line, like I write a rhyme sometimes, don't finish for days, or won't finish for the most lyric. Like in the back in the day, I never really comprehended that, because for me, I would sit down, and I'm always been a relatively fast writer compared to some of my homies I kick it with. So like I will sit down, and most of the time, if I sit down to write the verse, I'm knocking the verse out right there. Like it's pretty quick. But then as I've gotten a little older, I think what happened was I realized, like, sometimes, like, it was okay. Back in the day, I didn't think it was okay to edit the verse. Once the verse was out, I was like, that's the verse. Like, I was just like, that's what came out. I was very rigid about that for some reason. But then one day I was like, yo, that's hindrance. You know what I mean? That's holding me back. So like sometimes you write a bar and it isn't the first bar of the verse. It's the last or the middle or whatever. And then I started to realize, like, if I could write it in blocks and kind of like, so something just pours out of you sometimes, it's not the opener. Just put it right there to the side and find a space where it fits into the verse. And I started to puzzle piece it together a little more, instead of when I was younger, I was very much like, I'm writing it in order. You know what I mean? And that was not the way. Like for me, I realized it works for a lot of people, and it was working for me then at the time, but it does become a hindrance on how great the verse could be. So I definitely, I try to knock out the verse right there on site, but as we've gotten down and further into the catalog and gotten older and kids are around and life's happening, I do take my time now. And if it doesn't come out, I don't force it. I've always made it a point to have a studio at home. So here I'm at the crib right now. This is the little bedroom that turned into a studio. I have a studio here, so I can always just like come in and knock something out if needed. But a lot of the Mayday stuff we do in a studio space we rent. And then, when you go to work with someone else, you're on another clock. So I feel like keeping it diverse on how fast you have to write the verse sometimes, because sometimes you got to knock it out quick, So I try to be on that side of things.
Yeah, and I've learned and I'm sure you know this too, because how long we've been doing this, there's different dynamics to the time for the verse. So, all right, the luxury of your album time is there, kind of not infinite, but it's there.
Yeah.
The somebody pays you for a verse, they need it by tomorrow. You're gonna get it done.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then there's the corporate side. Coca-Cola needs this done within the next 2 hours, and paying you this amount of money. So your mind is able to shift into these different cases, but also I think there's also an understanding there of the quality may not always be the same because of the time constraints, but you gotta understand you are an entity in a business at the same time. There's a lot of little complicated layers that go with this with time and how you write. And this verse sounds better than this verse. Well, this time I only had 10 minutes and they was paying me 40,000. You never know what it could be something astronomical. You're not going to turn it down just because, you know what I'm saying? So I think people understand, some people don't understand it, but a lot of artists are beginning to understand more and more. They delve into their career.
Yeah. I think it as we progress through Mayday, and this is like an early ethos that Burns and Plex set, but they were like, we don't ever want to be too precious with the records. Like, if, and this comes from like the early MC days when you like get with a producer and then they give you a beat and then you'd be like, yo, I want to rock on this beat. And they'd be like, oh, sorry, I already gave it to so-and-so and it's gone. And then like I'd see in the early days, you'd see beef break out over that. And we had like a thing where we'd be like, look, no matter what it is, like we never want to trip over that, like if something happens to some piece of music, someone got the beat already, or this doesn't come out in time or whatever, like we just make some other shit, like fuck that. So like we I know it's like not, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but we wanted to be a little bit more, not disposable, but like less precious with it. We're going to make some dope shit. This is what it is. Boom. And then if it don't work out for whatever we envisioned it for, cool. Like keep it, pocket it for something else. Boom. On to the next thing, So it's, we always tried to keep it like that. So no matter what happened, we could make it happen. And, even if it's not a time constraint too, some days you just don't fucking feel the shit, like some days this is not like, I try to explain to my wife, like when my kids are 7, I got 7-year-old twin boys. Life has been different the last 7 years, trying to navigate, figuring out how to still maintain output and be productive and creative. And I had to explain to people as I'm telling people this, like, this ain't like a job where, or a hobby even, where you just go like, oh, I'm going to spend 30 minutes on the birdhouse today. Like, it's not like that. Sometimes you sit down and you're like, it'll take you 30 minutes just to wake your brain up to feel creative or pull something out of the ethos or whatever. Like, so it's, when you're on, it can be a time constraint thing, which I definitely felt the last 7 years, because with kids around, like you used to have like a day, now you have a moment. So it's like you have to figure it out real quick. And that pressure fucks with me. Like, I can't really feel the creative juices flow if I know that in 30 minutes, someone's going to need me for something. You know what I mean? Like, I need to be in my little zone or whatever. So time can definitely play a factor. And then even when the time constraint is removed, sometimes I've found when I'll be sitting in a hotel room on tour with the whole day off, some days you just don't feel the vibe, and I found it's most important not to force it in those moments. I've had a lot of people ask me over the years, like, about writer's block and inspiration. And I'm always like, don't force it. If you don't feel it, don't force it. Obviously, when you have a corporate gig and, Coca-Cola wants a thing or whatever, you got to figure that out. You know what I mean? Yeah. One of my first recording trips I ever went on, right? So like, I'm like 20 at the time. I had just won the MTV thing. I got my indie deal, and I had very little, only a couple of homies. My homie H2O, who had like kind of mentored me in the battle scene growing up and shit. He went with me on a trip with one of the label heads of this indie label we were working with. And we went to LA, and we got a session with J.R. Rodham, who was like a established hip hop and like pop producer doing this thing on the come up. Like he got way bigger after that, but he was already pretty popping at the moment. Right. And one of my wish list features at the time was Razkaz. And we had arranged it for Raz to come and do a session with us. He had just gotten out of prison or whatever, or jail, whatever it was at the time. And he had just gotten out, and he was like, yo, cool, I'm gonna come link with y'all. We'll do a joint, whatever. Cool, great. So we go into that session where we have a week with JR. We're doing one day with Raz. And the pressure of all of that shit was mind numbing for me. Like, it was very hard for me to just focus and do the writing that I was already doing at home.
Right.
I found that pressure to be so like destabilizing at the moment that I literally had like a breakdown in the hotel room. I remember being like, because at the same time, it was a pressure of the moment, the people I was working with, and then the label head at the time was real hands on and like trying to do the classic, like, we should do this kind of record. And I was like, and I was very like, now I'm 41. I'm like, yeah, fuck it. I'll try a club. I'll do whatever kind of record. As long as it feels good to me, I'm down to try whatever. That's like, I'm champion of versatility. Let's go. But in my 20s, I was not like that. In my 20s, I was like, man, fuck that club record shit. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. So it was very, it was a moment where I just like all those things converged, and I just had a moment where I couldn't even, it was a mind block, and I remember throwing my book across the hotel room, and my boy H, like, bless him, because he came and was like, yo, man, he talked me out of it. He said, I'll help you out. We could do this together. So some of those early records that we did in those sessions, like, he was there helping me co-write. And if I've got into a corner, he'd help me out. But those moments are when you really realize, like, there are moments you're going to be faced with in your career as a writer that you don't got the juice, or the spirits don't speak to you that day, or whatever it is. And you have to come up with a practical way around that, because like you said, when you get that gig or that moment comes up, there are going to be moments that you can't just wait. You have to do it. You have to go for it.
So what's the atmosphere for you writing? Is it morning, nighttime? Got to be dark, dimly lit, a lot of your friends around, people smoking and people not smoking. What's that vibe like for your best outcome?
I think, man, it's shit. I guess now it's changed a lot over the years, especially now I got the kids. Like, I used to be a super night owl, night writer, like, used to love writing at 3 a.m. Some of my favorite joints I've written, like Breaking Day kind of vibe,
Right.
Now I got kids. I wouldn't even dream of Breaking Day. You know what I'm saying? Like, no way. I'm good. So now I find it's become more of a practical thing. Like, it's not so much like, and this goes back to our last thing we were just talking about, like, it's not really about when I favor to write. It's about whenever I can write, period. Like the kid now, it's like the kids go to school. They're in first grade. So they've been going to school for pre-kindergarten and first. So I've had like almost 3 years now to recalibrate basically a writing schedule. And I'll find it be like, cool.
The kids. I'm glad you said that, because I've had people ask me, because, we post about what we got going on and doing stuff. So I'm posting all this stuff, and they're like, one of my friends text me like, yo, I need to talk to you. Like, how you doing all this stuff? I was like, brother, I got a schedule,
Yeah.
Like, me and you did this on a schedule. It ain't just like, yo, we're gonna get on. It ain't like that. We did it on a schedule. If you would have said, yo, I could do this time, I'm like, okay, I got to flex with that. And then I said so I like to hear more about like this schedule stuff that you got going.
Yeah, it's creating the structure of a schedule is important, because we have so many distractions now, more than we had when we were teenagers. Like, you could look at a notification on your phone and get pulled into it for 45 minutes and be fucked. Like, it's fucked up. So definitely trying to maintain those boundaries and creating that structure. So I know my kids are in school from 8 in the morning basically till I got to go head to pick them up around 1 p.m. So I know if there's nothing else scheduled, like some appointment or whatever, I got from 8 to 1 at the house. But sitting here and writing rhymes is not the only thing I got to do. So I got to always keep in mind, like, yo, there's other things I got to do. I do social media for me and Mayday, all the web stuff, the merch, like I do the merch stuff. So there's things to juggle where basically I used to try and schedule in the morning. Now I'm trying to like shift it into like scheduling it the day before. I've like read somewhere online where somebody was recommending doing that instead. They're like, if you set it and be like, yo, these are the 6 things I need to do the next day, make that checklist before you go to the next day, and the next day gets rolling, what that checklist is. So like once I started to kind of go into that zone, I'm real good. If you put the checklist on my phone and I got those reminders pop up, I know I got 3 things I still got to do. And by the end of the night, I'm gonna figure out a way to get those done, So what's cool is if you have kids or anything that takes your time away from you, let's say you get a new job or whatever, you immediately feel what it's like to be constricted of the time you used to have. So that's when you get real, like, okay, wow, like an hour used to seem like a minute. Now an hour seems like 6 hours. You know what I mean? Like I need to utilize this time. So having the kids definitely helped me like jog my my motivation for time in general, because the time is so much more precious to me now. Because when they go to school, it's the one pocket of free time I'll get in the day. I'm super hands-on with them. I'm with them most of the time, and I got two of them running around at the same time. So it's a challenge to find that time anywhere else. So I know I got those certain amount of hours. I got that checklist. I got to hit as many of those things as I can. And the truth of the matter is, the creative parts don't always fall into the place as they should. Like some days you just don't feel it. I'm like, yo, I got this feature. I got this thing I got to finish for this EP, whatever. Boom, I set it out. I get down. I'm in here. Everything's done for the day. I'm ready to write. And then it just be a block, and I'd be like, today's not the day. And just taking that not too hard. Like, definitely I've spoken to homies over the years they take that really hard. And I'm like, it's cool, man. It's just a day. It's just a day, and it is what it is. And like, not beating yourself up over that, because I feel like sometimes people beat themselves up over the lack of output or inspiration, and then that only puts you further in the hole. Now, fuck it. Like, just shake it off. That's what happened today. It's a creative endeavor. It's not like building the birdhouse. Like I said, it's not a physical thing that you can just do mindlessly. You have to have that vibe. You have to have that feeling, whatever it is in the air that has to be there. So some days that doesn't happen, and just keep it moving, schedule it in, and put that thing you had on the day that didn't get done onto the next day, and try it again tomorrow.
And then when you're writing, are you writing to the beat always, or you got rhymes to the side?
Definitely, I would say 98.5% of the time it's to the music. It's always to the music. Like, I like to write to the music and be inspired by what's happening in the music. The only time I'll do fragments of bars, like if I see like a movie or I'm watching something and I'm like, oh, I think of a bar, boom, I'll write it down or voice memo it and hold it for later. So like, I'll definitely do fragments or come up with an idea for a bar on the go and just throw it into the notes or throw it into a voice memo. But the writing of the actual verse, of course, hooks as well, definitely comes from the music. Like, I had a friend to me once, I always like doing freestyles over other people's beats, just like getting inspired by a record you love, and then, taking a swing on a beat you would otherwise never rock on. And I had another artist friend to me say one time, like, why do you do that? Like, you kind of wasting like material. And my counter argument to it was always, no, I mean, that material wouldn't exist without that music taking me to that place. So like, I'm happy to just sacrifice it. Yeah, it's never going to be an official record. I can never really put it out unless I remix it or whatever. But that piece wouldn't exist without the inspiration from that exact music. So I've always definitely taken my cues from the music first. And I make beats too. I'm like a self-loathing beat maker. Like, I'll make beats and then be like, like 10 of them are trash. One of them is cool. You know what I mean? Like, I never was able to burrow into production as much, like the actual beat making part of it, as much as I have rhyming. Same with DJing. So I'm like moderately good at DJing. I'm moderately good at production, from my standard. But, the rhyming is where it's really at. The songwriting aspect is where it's really at. So production wise, like, I've always just been envious of great beats. Like, as a rapper, I'm already like hype, but then as a musician, I want to rock on. I'm cool, but I just hear the beats and be like, how did they make that? Like, that's fire, So I just like rocking the beats, and without the music, it loses its appeal for me. I don't get as excited. The same thing happened with battling. They took music out of battling, and people started doing a cappella battling. And my last official battle was Mix Show Power Summit, early 2000s. It was me, J Mills, Shells, and Jin. And I went in there like, yeah, whatever, I got this. It's cool. I've been working on like an album, not practicing my chops, I'll just freestyle my way through it. I'll be fine. And when you take the music away and give me a minute round, it was the longest minute of my entire life, It was rugged because the music takes you there. The music gives you space to breathe, and the music inspires you. So when they took the music out of battling, it was the same thing as like, yeah, if you want me to write without the music, it's not going to be as fun.
And then when you're saying these verses, do you have to go straight through the verse, or you can punch in?
I love this. Is a great question. I don't like to punch in. I will if the record, like, if I do sometimes, I suffer from like trying to put too much like there. I don't write it with the proper breath space. Like, if the cadence is feeling good, I'll ignore the breath. Like, I'll be like, and then when I get in the booth, I'll be like, damn, I didn't really leave myself enough room to breathe here. This is going to be interesting. So if I have to punch, I'll do it like that for the sake of the verse being written a little bit unnaturally. But I do like to be able to do the verse from start to finish, because that means you could just go outside and rock it. So like if I can rock it on the show, and the show is very important to us, like we were signed to Strange Music for 11 years, and we're opening up for Tech N9ne, one of the goats of live hip hop. So like I got to be able to rock like my verses. Like I can't fuck around and write a verse that I think is so astronomical and then go on stage and fumble it. So I definitely try to make sure it's straight through. I will punch in. I've definitely gotten easier on that as the years have gone by. I'm a little bit more like accepting of it, but if I can go straight through, that's the way for me.
Yeah, I'm on that vibe too. If I can go straight through with it, then I'm cool. But then I'm like, okay, don't get in your own head. Like nobody knows how this verse is supposed to be. Nobody, like you're trying to like go stick in your own head, like, yo, go straight through. And it's like, but if I punch in, nobody knows if I punched in, if it sounds good enough.
Totally.
So don't get in your own way. So one of the other things about your writing is the storytelling aspect, right? So I got to watch the Galil, right? I got to see that video. Yeah, and I'm watching a lot of the videos and listening to the music, and you tell stories. You tell stories, and it's important within the way that you're rhyming. Like you're not just like kind of like rhyming and you're not making a song just to be making a song that's only going to impact how you feel, but you have a way to write it in a way that it gives a world view and it can impact anybody. Or I can take that song and play it for somebody else, and we're driving or sitting there like, and they'll be like, damn, he said some stuff right there.
Yeah.
So how important is that balance when you're making the music of, okay, this song is a story here, and then this song, I'm just kind of just rapping.
The balance has always been a struggle since the beginning. Like when I first started like learning how to write, I kicked it with Miami MCs that were really like amazing with what they were saying. And then I also got introduced to a class of Miami MCs that were cadence masters, like, and maybe you couldn't really pull as much meaning out of it, but the way it rhymed and the way it bounced was unmatched, So I always knew like early, I was like, there's going to be a balance there. I'm either going to want to really say some shit. I'm going to really want to flow on the beat real well, or how do you happy medium that? And the same thing goes with storytelling. I'm a super big like Slick Rick fan, like storytelling rap in general, just always loved, and storytelling music in general. Your Bob Dylan's, like there's when you hear certain stories on records, like they just stick with you so much. And I think also what I realized is like telling stories on record was a great way to bring in more people, because there's only so much that you're going to relate to what I'm saying, and especially there was an era of rap where like rappers were rapping just for rappers, you know what I mean? And that's cool. Like, like that's great. But at the same time, like you take that to this girl out in Nebraska, she's not a rapper. She doesn't relate to that shit at all. So how can you bring her into the mix? And stories became a really cool way, as well as, I like to write moody music. A lot of the times, not like making happy, so quote unquote music was never really like my go-to, but I'm a super positive dude. You know what I mean? Right. So it's like, how can I get the license to write music about shit that's fucked up? But I'm a positive person. And I realize over time, like I'm filling a void. Like I'm not quite angry. I try to keep a level head, yada, yada, but I need to fill that void. I got to hit that temper. You know what I mean? I got to basically like let that out and let that creative outlet out. So that's why I find sometimes I've known some people that are miserable, but they make happy music. And I'm like, that don't make no fucking sense. But I get it. They're chasing that, filling that void. So it's like trying to basically like open it up. And storytelling was just one way that I found like I just got into it really early. Like some of my earliest demos are a bunch of stories. And I found it super fun to be able to do. And there's a few stories I wrote over the years. One of my last Strange Music albums before I got off the label, I put a song out called The Coldest Dish. And it was a song kind of like a Count of Monte Cristo vibe, where it was a guy who got abused by his pastor. And then he took revenge on the pastor. Then in the second verse, he takes revenge on his mother because he blames her for letting it happen. And then at the end, he goes to take revenge on what sounds like his brother, you know, but it ends up being him. He holds himself responsible. So it's like these stories are like amalgamations of fiction. You know, I'm a big movie fan, so like that's part of it. If I wasn't in music, I would love to be in film. Since I'm not in film, how's a way to get kind of in there is create stories on records, you know? And then it also allows you to explore stories that people have told you. I know you can feel this. You go on the road, you meet people on tour, and they tell you, yo, this song of yours, it touched me in this way and affected me when my brother was sick. And they tell you these stories. You get all this fuel for stories that are not your stories, you know what I mean? But they're stories of this collective community that we're a part of that need to be told and that can inspire other people, because the best feeling when you feel that type of way or experience some kind of trauma is to know that someone else has been through it too, and someone else has survived it and thrived through it. So I found like stories, whether they're positive or negative or dark or light or whatnot, was a great way to be like, it's like one of the oldest traditions we got. Like, let's tell these stories and create something. And it's a cool creative license for the writer to get outside of their own shell, especially if you're just like happy-go-lucky guy and living a pretty standard life. Like, hey, I could also tell you these stories like an author would, and let's go to some wild places together and see what emotions it stirs up.
Yeah, and I think it's always dope because listening to the music, you can also get the first, second, and third person perspective too. I think that helps a lot. Just not locking yourself into, if I didn't do it, then it won't really resonate. But it's more so understanding like you can personification, use some literary devices and be like, yo, I can make this song about this. And like the way that you described that song right there is just dope. It made me go, oh, that's dope. And then the mom, oh, that's fire. Like you're bouncing around and it makes other people go like, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Perspective. Yeah. He's in that person's mind, and like what's in that person's mind, like you're delving deeper.
You know how they say travel broadens your horizons, right? And like you like people that haven't left their city ever, or left their state or whatever, they'll say like, yo, you should travel because it broaden your horizons and show you that like this world isn't really that we're all the same in our own way and whatever. So like the storytelling aspect of it is something that is also like, it's like that without having to leave your house. You know, like I traveled a lot because my parents split up when I was young. My dad did, he lived 5 years in New York. He moved and lived 5 years in Oakland. So I got both coasts, which was fucking phenomenal. You know, as a kid, I was real practical about that. I was like, yeah, divorce kind of sucks, but I'm traveling all over the country and meeting cool people. And my pops was a musician, but also he was a tennis instructor. So he would meet all kinds of really cool, interesting characters. And I would meet all kinds of interesting people. And I just learned really young that like people and their stories, like, you can learn a lot about yourself and about the world and about how a functional, positive way to operate in it and just experience life in the best way possible by ingesting what people have to offer and listening to people and listening to their stories. Yeah, they're not always going to be great stories. They're not always going to be positive stories, but like hearing all those things and observing people in your culture and your society is like a way to broaden your own horizons and learn about yourself and just be a better human and function better in this world that we're supposed to coexist in. So that's like the grandiose way of saying like a good story is just, hard to beat. And
then how do you stay motivated today? So, especially on the bar game with it, right? Like a lot of times it's vibe music now, or somebody might say this mumble rap or whatever the case. But I mean, there's people out there that dope. If I want to hear something, so like yesterday I'm listening, I'm up there like, okay, there's a standard still. So if I'm gonna write, you know what I'm saying? Like what are you listening to, or what keeps you motivated to put out dope music? Is it the beats that you're hearing, or is it just your internal integrity?
It's when I was younger, I was very rigid. I had my underground era, I started in that commercial, like gangster rap era, went into the golden era. Then for a while I was like in those like early 2000 raucous days, like I was very like, fuck the commercial shit, fuck the industry. Yeah. I went through all of that. And then as I started getting a little older, I was like, yo, man, like sometimes, Lil Jon and the East Side Boys record slaps, like, fuck it, and I started to realize like the same way that singing wasn't cool, but then I started to realize I like doing it. Then I was like, you know what, like, it's okay. It's really not that serious. Like, it's okay to like whatever I like and whatever makes me feel good. That's for me. And I don't have to live by these codes and these structures that we thought were so grandiose when we were growing up. And so I over the years, my palette it got, way expanded. So like I'll listen to the deepest, most underground hip hop cut that will never hit commercial radio or anything like that. And at the same time, I'll turn around and be like, yo, that, whatever, that Taylor Swift record's cool, like, or whatever, just appreciating the art for itself. So like, I've definitely gotten way more open. I would say now it's gotten to a point where we've done so much. There's so many different styles of everything. Like it's rare when you hear something that you're like, it's brand new. Like I've never heard this ever, So I don't really look for that. But at its core, it's just like hearing something that just inspires you. And for me, I know when I hear something that gets me motivated, it just makes me want to write. You know what I mean? Like if I hear a Pharoah Monch verse come off hot off the press, and I'm like, yo, I gotta go write something right now. That is, to me, is like, there's certain writers over the years, especially when it comes to MCs.
That verse, well, he just dropped, he dropped stuff here and there, but he got the verse on the new Beat Miner single.
Yes.
And then the verse on that Smith and Wesson.
Yep.
Oh man.
Smith and Wesson one is fire. Yeah. He's one of my favorites. He's always been one of my favorites. He's just like, there's, you'll hear verses from all different writers, and then like, it's a verse, for me anyways, I know it's a verse that is undeniable fire when I literally hear the end of it and I'm like, I want to write right now. Like it just make you want to write, And what's kind of whack is that like, as we've gotten older and hip hop's got more saturated and just in general, everybody's kind of spread thin. You get that feeling less. I get that feeling less, like finding inspiration is tough. So like, I get it a little less from that avenue where it used to be like every Friday you'd hear the new drop, or every Tuesday you'd hear the new drop and be like, yo, this is all going to fill the tank. Now I find it's more like, we've got all that inspiration over the years. It's kind of put into the bank, and you get those sparks, and that's cool. Embrace the shit when you see it, because it doesn't come as much as it used to. And the other way I find it is, it's just like living life in general. Like anyone who's ever asked me about writer's block over the years, I'm always like, if you ever find like you're blocked up or you're just not inspired, just put the pad down, put the music down, step out the studio for a minute, and just go live, because people be forgetting to do that. Like just go out and do some shit. Like
I'll take a drive with the beat.
Yeah.
Let me just go take a drive. Let me go to Target real quick or somewhere. Like just, and have the beat playing. Now all of a sudden I got a couple bars like in the car.
Like change your environment, or just go meet some new people, talk to people, go to the dive bar down the street, have a drink and meet a stranger. Hear a story. You know what I mean? Like put yourself in the position to like, it's like in Unbreakable, that Bruce Willis movie. Like he's like, just go to where people are, because he basically like realized he has this sixth sense or whatever, for no pun intended, but he has sixth sense for like finding evil in the world or whatever. So he's like, just go to where people are. You got to just be inspired by the people around you in life. Don't be a sidecar to the life that's happening out there, because life is going to give you the inspiration. So just go put yourself in the mix somewhere, do some shit you never did before. So I try to do that. And again, like after I would love to know if you feel this way too. After a certain amount of years, it definitely feels a little bit more like a practical muscle memory, more than like a inspiration spark. You get what I mean? Like I could sit down and write, and I have like those muscle memories in place that like I can write even when I'm not like inspired to a degree. Like the same way you said you have to do it for a corporate gig. Like there's a level of I've done it so many times over the years that I feel real comfortable just sitting down and just doing it. Like I don't need the big spark every time,
My mindset, I got a couple of dynamics on it. My mindset is don't let the beat beat you. That's one.
Facts.
That's one. My other way I look at it is when I get the beats that I like, and when I'm working on a project, especially like I did the project with Stu, and then we working on more. So like it's Stu Banger's beat. So it's like I definitely got to make sure I'm going to be doing what I do.
Yeah, so those beats will beat you up if you're not careful.
Exactly. So I take my time with it and make sure that I got this other thought process of the puzzling of words, right? So I can watch you rhyme, right? And then even though I'm in the midst of writing songs, I go, okay, Wrekonize is making sure there's a standard of rhymes, and he's just rhyming. He's been doing it for years, consistently. So obviously there's other combinations that I haven't thought of. So I have to be self-aware that the combination I have here isn't the only combination.
Yes.
and I'm comfortable knowing that my combination right here may not be the best one. So I'm okay with sitting until I feel like it's gonna wow me.
Mm.
So I always try to remove myself. And I was telling somebody yesterday, there's billion people on earth. So if I gave this same rhyme or verse to be written by these other billion, that means there's so many combinations.
Yeah.
Now, my job is to find several of those combinations that will wow anybody.
Yeah.
And that takes time with patience of sitting there. So I just make sure that I give myself the grace of sitting there and understanding that I have to look at me from being in the crowd. Because look, I remember when I first saw Blue Rhyme, right? We were overseas in Germany. First time saw Blue Rhyme. He was with Exile. They're on tour. We're on tour, but we both got the same. We got a night off. They performing. I go chilling. Blue come out on stage. He rhyming, and he said, "I've been to hell and back with something hot that can melt the wax." I said, "Oh, that's kind of crazy, right there." I said, "He came hell and back with something that can melt the wax." I said, "That's crazy."
Yeah.
So I know when I hear something that makes me go, "That's crazy."
Yeah.
So I have to remove myself. And when I'm projecting myself on stage, if I'm in the audience, do I say, when I hear that, "That's crazy"? If I don't do that and don't remove myself from hearing my same rhyme said by a stranger, then I don't think it's dope.
Yeah.
If a stranger can't say that bar that I wrote, then it's not dope.
Yeah. I feel that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I can read your rhymes and I can just take your rhymes and go say it to somebody right now that never met me or whatever, and I read it and they'll be like, "That's crazy," and I'll just be like, "Yeah, that's a recognizer." Yeah, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a quality control there that's recognized by the combination of wordplay, the flow, and you can just know when you just hand it off to somebody to read your own vocals and your own literary work. That's why I like listening to you and watch you do freestyles, because there's a standard there that even you don't have to be recognized to say that rhyme. You can give that to Jack Jill, and them saying it is going to be just as crazy. So it's written so well, it's crazy no matter who says the recognized rhyme, you know. And I don't think people could really understand that until you really say, "Read that to me."
Yeah.
And then they start the connections, and then you'd be like, "What the heck?" I mean, I wrote something here. You said, "I keep it moving, and so I can live the life I deserve to live tenfold." Like, I'm like, yo, I don't think people grasp the fact of saying something so powerful without a beat and written by somebody else, which made me. I put a book out about my bars. It did real well. It made it top 10 on Amazon. It's called What Words Are Worth. And I did one of my albums, and I break down every 4 bars of on each song on the album, right? And I got that vibe from when we used to go to open mics and we went to all these places, and people would go on stage and say, "Yeah, I'm gonna read this poem from such and such," and they had that book on stage. It was always something separate feeling from seeing somebody go up there and actually open the book of somebody else's work and read that, and then the audience is clapping for somebody else's work because it's so powerful.
To be able to translate it from the written to because delivery is so important, that for a while people would send me verses online and be like, "What do you think of this?" And I'd be like, "Yo, man, to be honest with you, I'm doing you a disservice, because like I can't read this the way you wrote it." You know what I'm saying? But now I never thought about it like that. For a work to be so good that it could just be translated easily by anyone is something that I never really even thought of as like a point to look for. You know what I mean? Because I always just dismissed it as like, yo, if you write it down, like it's not going to sound how you want it to be delivered. So I always just kind of dismissed it. And of course, you know, a lot of people send you stuff over the time and it's not really up to par or whatever, but you're just too much for you to intake, you know? But when you put it like that, if it's good enough where somebody could just open it and deliver it, anybody, a stranger in the audience, that's a whole different level.
Yeah, and that's where I would say we are as lyricists of what we do, which is why I try to maintain my integrity of what I'm writing, because I'm reading it and writing it and saying, if I give this to a stranger when they read it, can they get that same response with that applause without the beat. And that's
Yeah.
how I feel about listening to what you write and identify with that. So that's why it's dope hearing how you come up with these bars and seeing that people are able to understand the integrity of what you do.
I appreciate that. I
I
got
got
lost. I got lost in cadence for a while too, while we're on the subject, because hanging out with the Midwest rappers that chop, you know, the cadence was so crazy. And it became, when we first signed on Strange Music, it became kind of like well, you got Tech N9ne doing what he's doing, and a lot of the other rappers on the label also chopping. But then when you speed it up or you double or triple it up, you can easily lose the connection with the audience because they can't fully understand it, and they definitely can't fucking recite it. And then, you know, we were on tour, and the other MC in Mayday, he could pick it up, he could double it up as well. He's a little modest about it, but he don't really chop like that. So there would be moments where we'd go and do a Mayday record, and they do his verse, and the crowd be doing every word of his verse and into it, and then I'll go and do a little, maybe I'll pick up the speed a little bit, and I'll lose the crowd. And I didn't like that. I was like, it's cool because in the cypher it looks cooler as just like a look what I could do. I could rap real fast, but then like I lost the whole fucking audience. Like what? Like they can't say the shit. They like it, they like listening to it, but they can't say it. So it goes to what you're saying is like for them to be able to recite it is an important feature of like that connection. And I feel like sometimes can be overlooked when people are just trying to rap real good. You know? Yeah,
it's super powerful, man. When you can read, when somebody else goes on stage and they say, this is a verse I got from Wrekonize. I'm going to read this to you. And it's silent. Then they finish and it's not theirs. It's yours. And it's like, man, okay, I got to go check Wrekonize, you know? So I kind of, that's my mindset when I'm writing, is that I'm writing for the actual reading of it rather than the song version.
I love that. And it shows in your work. Because when you hear your verses, you could recite them. I always felt, even when I first got introduced to your music, like you could say, I don't know, there's something about your writing that I always felt like I could kick that verse, and it translates so well. It's just written well. So I like, it shows now that you say that just kind of epiphany for me, whereas like, okay, Eureka, like you approach it like that and you mean for it to be like that. And that does something to the listenability of it. And then also, like if you're a writer and you appreciate it, you could just take that passage and be like, yo, you know, you could walk a half a block and feel the aftershock. Like, you know, you feel it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I think that's kind of just what I've learned also just in like meeting some other people like that are not necessarily in the hip hop too. Mm-hmm. So like people that are in the collegiate fields or educational field, when they're trying to understand who we are and you give them something, a lot of people don't want to hear the music version.
For sure.
But you say, here's what I wrote. They read that and they go, I need you to come speak to the kids. I need you to come do the keynote. I need to do that because your writing is powerful. There's not going to be no beat behind you at the keynote today.
Right.
So if what I read here is so powerful, man, you know, and that's what I've learned too, is just making sure that both realms are covered with that. But yeah, man, we could go all day because we love so
I love talking shop. I know my interviews always go long because I'll talk shop.
I love it, man. I mean, man, I'm into it too. So if three pieces of your work and that you suggest people check out that don't know you, whether it's a single or album or something new or freestyle, what are three things that, hey, go look at this, go check this out?
Oh man, that's a tough question when you look back on it all.
You know, Wrekonize, you know, we got joints that we'll have on the album that nobody else's favorite. That might be your favorite on the album, and you be like, I even put out as a single because this sounds.
Yes, no, absolutely. Like, yeah, there's some joints that you think are gonna do real well, and then like you really love them for a reason, and then when they go out for some reason they don't resonate as much, or the joint you didn't think would resonates. It's always weird when that happens. So I always try not to let the analytics of it all like muddy up the water too much, because hey, at the end of the day, you made all that stuff. So hey, for whoever likes whatever part of it, I actually now grew to like it when people go, yeah, I like 1, and someone goes, I like 3, I like 7, I like 9. I'm like, cool. Yeah. The more different variety of answers, I don't want everyone bulked up on number 3 or 2 or whatever. I want everyone.
We've been in the crowd, probably. Maybe you've been in the crowd too, and I've been in the crowd when I'm at a show watching somebody rock, and I'll be like, oh, he doing that joint. He doing my joint. Like,
yeah.
She's performing that joint, and maybe the person with you kind of like, don't know really. I'm not really into that one, but you like, yo, that's the record, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I guess you know, one of my earliest pieces of work that still like transcends and does really well and gets a lot of people involved is a record called One Foot in the Grave. It's on my first album. The album was really important to me because it was I got shelved on my first record deal when Mayday put out their record. For the label ended up collapsing before I could put the record out, and it was such a labor of love for me to put the album together that I ended up having to pivot off a lot of that material because it was caught up in the rights and I didn't know what I could do or couldn't do. So I crafted a whole nother record, and I had just joined Mayday. And when I joined Mayday, I told the guys, look, like, I'm down. I love what y'all are doing. I want to be a part of it, but you know, I'm a solo artist as well. I'm always going to kind of want to do my thing on the side and have my solo stuff. If y'all are cool with that, let's keep it moving. And to their credit, they were always super cool about that. And I told them my other caveat is I got this album. If I don't put it out now, I feel like I'm never going to put it out, you know? And it was 2010. And basically I put it out a month before or a month after the first Mayday album that I was fully a part of. So we put the records out real close together. And after that, we went on our, you know, we ended up, like, long story short, if I wouldn't have put that album out, it would have been years before I would have got to put it out. So I was very happy to put it out. And the single has Burns, who's also, you know, the co-founder of Mayday, on it as well. And people still talk about that song. So that One Foot in the Grave is one I always ask people to check out. Of course, one of the biggest records of our career that I always like to show people is a record called Fragile, which we co-produced and co-wrote and ended up becoming a Tech N9ne record. Kendrick Lamar is on there. It went gold. They said it's about to go platinum. I don't know. I never thought I'd get a plaque on my wall. That song put a plaque on our wall, which is a beautiful thing. And it was also a lesson in, like, what I talked about earlier about not being too precious with the music, because we made the song. We had a verse, we sung the verse, we co-wrote the hook and sung the hook with Kendall Morgan. So we had it all ready to go. And it really, we could have just finished it and made it a Mayday record. We went to Kansas City on a trip, and Burns said, hey man, I think we should play this one to Tech. And I was like, yeah, all right, cool. It was still early in our relationship with Tech N9ne. So we were like, I mean, yeah, fuck it, show it to him, I guess. But in my head, I was like, I don't know if he would like this. And then on top of that, I really like it. You know what I'm saying? So he showed it to him, and Tech N9ne immediately reacted to it and was like, this is for me. Like, I can have it. And we were like, yeah, whatever you want, man. You know, and it was, I was going with it the whole time, but I was a little bit begrudging, like, damn, I really like that one. You know what I'm saying? But that record wouldn't have been what it ended up becoming without it becoming Tech N9ne's record. It had to become his record to get Kendrick Lamar on it, for then it to, like, 6 months down the line, have a radio run and do what it did. It couldn't have done that as a Mayday record, especially not at that time. And I had to let go of it to get it to that place. So that's always one I like to recommend to people. And then I got I would say, if it wasn't Cold as Dish, which is one of my favorite storytelling records I've done, there's one called The Man Under the Bridge too, which when I first started going to New York as a child, I have very vivid interactions of my pops interacting with homeless people on the street in New York City, and seeing how he reacted and how he treated them and the empathy that he had for them in various different stories that I would just see and I would take as a very young child. And it always had an effect on me. And just that challenge as a society, how we deal with it and how we don't deal with it, unfortunately, always kind of fucked me up. And you see it a lot in Miami as well. Not as prevalent as New York City, obviously, because it's not as condensed, but you do see it. And The Man Under the Bridge was a way for me to write a story and say, like, I might never get what you're going through. And you know, in a way, a lot of people think like I have it better off because I'm not homeless or whatever. But you're looking at me like, yo, you got a lot of shit to deal with. You got these struggles and I'm free. You know what I mean? So trying to like analyze that relationship from both sides, and also trying to empathize with what both of us got going on, understanding that there's pros and cons to both, obviously. And at the same time, like, I care for you and I want you to be doing better. So it was just a way to tackle that topic. And it resonated with people a lot more than I thought it would. So, you know, sometimes you'll have a record that you think is just personal for you, and then people relate to it. So The Man Under the Bridge is one of those ones that also became that.
Man, well, Wrekonize, man, I want to definitely, you know, show my appreciation for you, man. Give your social media so everybody can follow you, see these dope freestyles you be putting up.
Yeah. I did a run in. Oh, the other thing I recommend, just to throw a bonus one in there, in 2019, I was coming off a year of like very low output because I had my kids, and I was very, hands-on with the twins. Is obviously, there's two babies, so you need two parents there. It's hard to just juggle one parent versus two babies. So I was there. We did one Mayday album, which was mostly helmed by the guys. I came in and filled in the blanks. So when 2019 rolled around, I was like, yo, I need to get back. I need to catch up. So I said, hey, I'm going to do a freestyle every week for 52 weeks straight and never miss a week. So it was definitely one of the most challenging like times of my life, because we did an album, we did a Tech N9ne tour, we did a Mayday tour, I did 100. I went to South Africa that year. We shot a documentary with DJ EFN called Coming Home, because my pops was born in Cape Town. So we did a lot that year, and throughout that whole year, I was able to maintain a 52-week straight freestyle run, and I'm super proud of it. Even these 5 years later after. So if you check out that, there's a 52 freestyle run on YouTube and Bandcamp and stuff that you could check out.
Speaking of your YouTube, because also congratulations, got 100,000 subscribers.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, that's a big one for me. I'm a super YouTuber since back in the day. Had my channel featured on an early music video, and then had it taken down because I had Kimbo Slice fight videos and on my YouTube and shit. That's how long I've been fucking with YouTube. So I was very, very proud to cross that threshold. I appreciate that.
So yeah, what's the social media for Instagram and
IG is Wrekonize, X is Wrekonize, YouTube is Wrekonize the music, TikTok's Wrekonize music, some variation of that. I think that's about it. And then I got this a community called the Wrecking Crew. It's on the hat here. It's on my Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/Wrekonize, I do monthly freestyles that are exclusive to the channel. We do live streams every Friday night. We do movie nights and watch movies together on Discord. Do kind of like exclusive music, merch, all of that stuff. So we have a cool community there. So you can check us out, patreon.com/Wrekonize. And yo, for real, honor and a privilege. Thank you so much for having me. When you hit me up, I was like, for real? Like it's a privilege to talk to you for real. And I don't want to understate that. I don't want to geek out on you either, but I really would have to geek out to a level that might not be flattering on camera to display to you how much your work has meant to me over the years. And like, thank you for doing what you've done always, and for being so cool.
Yeah, man, I appreciate all that, man, and vice versa, man. So I'm scrolling through my Instagram, and then freestyles come up, and I'm able to just like go, yeah, this is dope. Like, I need to hear that. I need to hear what you do, because like I said, you keep a bar. There's a bar set. It's never going downhill, and it's always dope, man. So for everybody out there, I'm gonna have everything in the links in the description as well. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
Go to his YouTube, Instagram, and everything. And like always, I always ask y'all out there, what are your words worth? Peace. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I got 2 books available right now. What Words Are Worth Volume 1. And I also have a children's book called Socks. Age range from 12 to 15. So it's kind of like the middle school and high school age range, but adults can read it as well.